this isn't a huge thing. This is actually more to kind of goes a little bit into the conversation we were having earlier about how everything's paralleling. It's paralleling a little too hard. Because I know you're probably aware of the uh, In Good Faith podcast with Philip DeFranco.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They've
yeah,
just
yeah.
started.
Oh no. So that's a different one. That's a second podcast. He's got a comedy podcast now, but this is his second political podcast. So he's got
Yes. Yep.
the PDS, and In Good Faith is where he does his more kind of broad, funnily enough, more BHN style interviews. It's kind of hilarious watching Philip technically do a BHN, if I can say that. Um, and
Do a
so I
BHN. We've become a verb.
right. Exactly. And so I was obviously listening to the podcast and I thought, okay, what he's saying right now, that that almost sounds exactly like what I've heard Chloe say about New Zealand. And then he goes into another bit and I go, Craig Renney, is that you? Like I swear to God, he almost exactly verbatim says something that Craig just said to us. I think I don't even know if it was this week or last week, because again, all the weeks are blurring into fucking one. But I will just share it because there's four kind of spots that I picked. This timestamp is kind of talking about stock markets and basically wealth and how it's distributed. So I'll check this up here and then go from me wee little timestamp to about here. And then we'll just let them, although I will speed them up because Americans are real slow, honestly.
Hey.
Hey, they do. They talk slow. I mean, Philip doesn't, but most of them do. All
A
right.
little bit more, but the stock
Too
market,
fast.
again, is not a good indicator of our financial health. It's a great indicator of rich people's financial health because the top 1% in America controls half of the market cap of the entire S&P 500. Basically, they own half of the stock market, $25 trillion in equities. The top 19 households, 19 of them, control 2% of all US household wealth. In 1982, it was 0.1%.
And it made me think of the 311 families in New Zealand.
So massive explosion in the wealth of the very, very top. And you've got the bottom 50% of Americans who own 3% of the total household wealth. So essentially what is happening is it's this kind of terrible cocktail where not only is the economy actually not doing well when you look at the majority of Americans, we also think that we're doing well. We think because of all of this data that does not account for the massive inequality that is rising in America. We think things are going fine. And even our government thinks things are going fine. They look at the data and say, look, we're doing well. Stock market's at record highs. Everything's going great. Which of course means that we're not doing anything to solve the problem and to fix the fact that the entire consumer economy is being driven by people who make more than $250,000 a year. Not great, is what I would say.
Which is, we've literally heard Chloe talk about the 311 families owning more than the 2 million New Zealanders. And then we can jump into this next one, which I found interesting because it's very much going into that fiscal conservative kind of just drum that this government basically beats almost every day. I would argue. Let me just double check, make sure that's the right one. 49. Yeah, that'll do.
And keep borrowing. And for me, when I think about the biggest threat to America on a sort of global systemic level, biggest threat and the worst thing that we've seen to the America's position as number one in the global order, it's the big beautiful bill, which was passed this year, which is going to, and remember, the Trump campaign, part of the message, part of the idea was fiscal conservatism, we're going to balance the budget. That is what he said. That is what Trump said in his address to Congress. We are going to balance the budget. And what happened?
Which our government loves to say, budget, got to get the budget back into balance.
All of Congress stands up and they start clapping. It was the loudest applause on the entire night. They said, we're going to balance the budget. And I remember hearing that. I was like, this guy's, awful in a lot of ways, in my view. But, that is good. We should balance the budget. That's a good idea. Then the big, beautiful bill comes out, which is going to add $4 trillion to our national debt. Our net interest, the amount that we pay just to service our debt right now, is currently $900 billion per year. That's our second largest federal expenditure. We spend more on just servicing the debt than we do on national defense. With this bill...
Also, servicing the debt means like paying interest on your debt. So that's literally just to maintain. Although I will skip a little bit ahead because I think this one's probably the better one. Because this one takes a little bit longer. Where is it? Yeah, about here.
No, you can't spend billions of dollars.
Who have we heard say you can't spend billions of dollars? Give you a guess, it's Craig Renney.
Keep it. They buy stocks and they buy assets, and the assets grow and grow and grow in price, and then they just sit on it because that's all you can do. I mean, if you're Elon, you're worth $350 to $400 billion. He cannot spend that money. He cannot inject that money into the economy. That does not trickle down. Billions and billions of dollars in the hands of one person. There is one thing that you can do with that amount of money, and that is sit on it. And then give it to your children. That's all you can do with this money. So essentially what's happened is all of the money that we have decided to give to rich people because we said we're going to cut down on your taxes and we're going to make the environment extremely favorable to the very, very top 1%. We basically said to them, just enjoy the cash, and we're going to have it locked up there in your bank account at Goldman Sachs, or we're going to have it locked up in your,
which obviously Craig has talked a lot about how, these people that essentially set the stock market's like health are also the same people who are not injecting money into our economies. And things like the big, beautiful bill obviously were added in just to make that become a lot worse. Though there was an interesting bit that I'm going to jump to, and it's only, it's not even 30 seconds long, but there was some really and a really interesting study that I had never heard about that he brings up near the end. So 45, 50. There we go. And this is just in terms of they're looking at basically money and happiness.
Does it statistically, and that is he's looked at the studies on happiness and how money affects your happiness. And it's true, money does mean happiness, but only up to a certain point. From the work that he's done, and I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but I believe from the data he has looked at, the number at which you kind of max out is around $10 million. At that point, you're not getting any happier based on the studies.
I think the happiness...
And I double checked, looked into it. Yep. I also found that there was actually a following study that was done that actually found that correlation between happiness and income is a lot higher when income inequality is much higher. So essentially, the bigger wealth gap you have, the more like happiness that kind of will amp up to, because originally some of the first studies said it capped out at like $75,000, which obviously wasn't true. And they've done a number of studies that have actually used the original study he's referencing, as well as I think they had something crazy like 13,000 samples in their studies. So yeah, this part here is showing that they literally can tell you where the number stops. 10 million. So when people go, oh, well, how do we know what mega wealthy or what wealth we should be taxing above certain aspects? And there it is. It's $10 million. Also, Scarge, I do see you. If you didn't hear us earlier, we're on the same path as America. So sometimes we have to look at what they're up to so we can figure out what not to do. Yeah, you're being annoying. But yeah, I mean, I do actually highly recommend everyone actually go watch this episode of In Good Faith with Philip Franco. They're talking all about stagflation, which is probably pretty obvious. It's talking about the height of inflation as well as the stagnancy that we're seeing in terms of, wages not going up and all of those types of things, and then the essentially shit show that it kind of creates. And definitely, again, just too many parallels to stuff that we've heard from Craig, Chloe. Like, there's also the aspect of hypocrisy where we keep being told by governments that are fiscally conservative that they'll spend wisely, yet we're all seeing we might not be retiring till we're 72 because they don't want to fucking tax wealth. So, yeah, that was my little side tangent.
That's really interesting that you brought that up because one of the things I did want to talk about today, which I won't go into really massive detail because you can probably do it yourself, but I just want to point out a number that might shock you when we're talking about wealth inequality. Perfect. So the Stats NZ net worth stats came out. And it's kind of scary. So it's exactly what you would expect. People, so if you're in the upper 50th percentile, the person you have to be with an asset, you have to have a net wealth of about 500,000. That puts you into the very bottom of the 50%. And I think if you want to be in the 1%, it's about 8 million for the household and up. So if you're at the 1%, the bottom is 8, and then from there it skyrockets. Like the difference between the 5, 10, and 1% is actually not a huge amount, but the 1% top is like well above. Anyway, very interesting stuff. It's what you'd expect basically. When they look at it per ethnicity, it's really scary. Okay, so obviously, yep. I mean, even we all know this stuff. So individual net worth increased with age. Obviously, those aged 15 to 24 had the lowest median. Median being take all the numbers and you find one that's directly in the middle. Point to that. It's 4,000. People aged 75 and over had the highest median at 590,000. Net wealth, if I'm not mistaken, also is all of your assets combined, so that's stocks, your house, whatever, minus how much debt you're in. So, it could be a lot of things. So after standardizing for the different age profiles, Europeans had the highest median individual net worth at 222,000, up 44% from the year in 2021. Do you know what the it is for Māori?
It's not going to be that big. I hope it doesn't go backwards. That's what I'm scared of, though. Please don't be negative.
So 222,000, up 44% from the year to 2021. I believe this is the June 2024.
Yeah. So
brace
then that's
yourselves. Māori had a median net worth of 52,000, which was no statistically significant change from 2023. And Pacific people had a median net worth of $26,000. Top 1% now hold 14.1%, which was slightly down on previous years. Ooh. Top 10 and 5% also hold slightly less of the wealth overall, but the top 50% is relatively constant.
Damn.
That is a
what happened to this Māori privilege? I don't see Māori privilege in this. That's like what? Literally a quarter? No, way less than a quarter of the European stat. And I didn't even come here to do
And
math. Fuck.
no significant change,
Yeah.
and 44% up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's fucked. No
This is
surprises
less
that
than
happened
some
under this
people's.
government.
This is less than some people's KiwiSaver. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like
My KiwiSaver's not
our
that high.
generation. Yeah, like our generation, working 10 years kind of KiwiSavers, just your average before you bought a home type KiwiSaver. That's abysmal.
To be fair, 26,000 is not as far away from what I actually get in a whole year.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I wouldn't read this particular article because one of the things that really pissed me off in this, Westpac senior economist Satish Ranchard said that was an interesting development for the economy because the 50% was relatively constant. He said the lower net worth quintiles were where increases were typically slower. Why do you think? But his reasoning is, I would suggest, this is probably based on all the things that I understand, it's probably slower because they haven't got money to build upon. Like, it's hard to build on top of a tiny amount. The top quintile, really fucking easy to make money off $1 million. Like, that shit just grows beyond. But his reasoning was, those will often be the people who are earlier in their working careers as well, and they shouldn't have had they wouldn't have had the chance at this stage to have built up wealth level. True, but also not the only factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
No.
just if you take away anything today, I just want you to remember those two numbers.
Well, especially if you hear someone talking about fucking marry elites or whatever the fuck bullshit they like to go on about. Like, that's a really depressing fucking number, I'm not gonna lie.
I literally floored when I saw that. It's really sad.
Yep, but
Really,
no,
really
let's
sad.
listen to this government talk about how we're the divisive ones for pointing shit like this out. Yeah, because that's really the problem. Like, yeah, it's frustrating when you've got all the data and evidence to show why you're annoyed and yet you still get gaslit.